particularly defense manufacturing, where rare earth elements are vital. The initiative comes amid broader effort to unlock Africa's mineral potential while advancing global supply diversification. As countries race to secure the minerals powering the future, projects like Falaboa may redefine not just where minerals come from, but how they are produced.
And that's the world news. Coming up next is Kakaki Business. Stay with us.
Welcome to Kakaki Business. Global finance leaders whipsawed by Middle East war news came to grips this past week with their inability to mitigate the economic damage from increasingly frequent geopolitical shocks, and a realization that counting on U.S. leadership to resolve crisis is no longer the guarantee it had long been. At International Monetary Fund and World Bank spring meetings in Washington, participants swung from gloom over a worsening global economic outlook due to deepening energy price and supply shocks to tentative optimism that it appeared Iran may reopen the Strait of Hormuz and allow flows of oil, gas, fertilizer, and other commodities to resume. By Saturday, that optimism was already fading amid new attacks on shipping. The IMF and the World Bank pledged up to a combined $150 billion in new financing assistance to developing countries hit hardest by the massive energy price shock, and celebrated their re-engagement with Venezuela's acting government after a 7-year pause. They warned countries not to hoard oil and not to go overboard with expensive and untargeted fuel price subsidies. But in the end, there was not much they could do but to watch statements from Tehran and the White House. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said on Sunday he believes gas prices have peaked but predicted that they may stay above $3 per gallon until next year. Gas prices have risen during the U.S. and Israeli war on Iran and Iranian attacks on nearby countries, creating political headwinds for President Donald Trump ahead of the November midterm elections, where his Republican Party will defend slim majorities in the Senate and House of Representatives. Gas below $3 could happen later this year. That might not happen until next year, but prices have likely peaked and they will start going down, Wright told CNN State of the Union program. Certainly with the resolution of this conflict, it will go down. Trump administration officials have offered different views on how gas prices may shift. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent last week predicted gas prices would fall to the $3 per gallon range this summer, while Wright on Sunday laid out a lengthier likely timeline to reach that price. The yen may come under further pressure if markets see the Bank of Japan as being too slow in addressing inflationary risk, Asian Development Bank President Masato Kanda said. Investors buy dollars in terms of global stress in parts of the U.S. is an oil exporter, but even when such positions are unwound, the yen fails to rise much against the dollar. Kanda, who was formerly Japan's top currency diplomat, told reporters. Investors may also sell yen if they worry about Japan's fiscal sustainability, Kanda said during his visit to Washington to attend this meeting of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank Group. An advocate of expansionary fiscal policy, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has rolled out subsidies to cap gasoline prices and pledged to keep boosting spending to support the economy. And Sub-Saharan Africa's fiscal outlook is projected to weaken in 2026, despite some support from higher commodity prices, improving external balances in parts of the region. This is according to the April 2026 Regional Economic Outlook by the International Monetary Fund, titled Hard-Won Gains Under Pressure. The report forecasts that the region's median fiscal deficit will rise to 3.2% of GDP, marking a slight deterioration from 2025 and underscoring persistent strain on public finances. While some economies are experiencing improvement, the IMF notes that gains in external sectors are not translating into stronger fiscal performance. Overall, the outlook points to an uneven recovery, with modest progress in external accounts but continued widening of fiscal deficit. The Federal Ministry of Finance has dismissed allegations of hidden spendings and diversion of federal revenue, describing interpretations of the World Bank's Nigeria Development Update as misleading. In a statement issued in Abuja and signed by the Minister of State for Finance, Taiwo Oyedele, the ministry said claims of missing funds stem from a misreading of the report. It explained that deductions by the Federation Accounts Allocation Committee are legitimate and cover statutory transfers, security spending, savings, investment, and cost of collection charges. This, it noted, are lawful fiscal processes, not leakages. The ministry also criticized the use of outdated data, stressing that recent 2026 reforms are already improving revenue management. It highlighted a new executive order to boost petroleum revenue remittances and enhance transparency, while pointing to improvement in economic indicators such as growth, inflation, reserves, and debt levels. The government reaffirmed its commitment to transparency and urged accurate reporting to sustain confidence in ongoing reforms. And that's Kakaki Business. Good morning.
Is where policy meets people. It's a bold policy literacy platform bridging the gap between decision makers and women across every sector. From parliament to politics, from leadership to governance, from peace to economy, development, human rights, from Nigeria to the rest of Africa, Gender Agenda amplifies voices too often excluded, ensuring every voice counts. Through compelling storytelling, social impact dialogue, thought-provoking documentaries, town halls that lean on data and research, we raise the bar. Gender Agenda, every Friday, 4:30 p.m. live on AIT and on AIT's YouTube channel at AIT Live. My name is Adora Sidney Jack, and this is Gender Agenda. Gender Agenda.
Well, it's time for us to definitely talk some sports, and Simba Shema will be telling us all the latest. I mean, good morning, Simba. It's great to see you.
Good morning, Adora. I mean, so much banter to happen this morning because the most anticipated game in English Premier League happened and it didn't go in the favor of so many people. Absolutely. As expected.
Absolutely.
But some of us expected it anyway. So
yeah,
we're getting into all the analysis and what went wrong and perhaps what will happen moving forward this morning.
Yes, and Guinea is asking Morocco to also return their title of 1976. So if you want Senegal to return their own, I'm so looking forward to how that.
Well, I think they already came out for some time. Senegal came out. I mean, Guinea said that. Yes. They are not asking for that. There's been rumors that people are carrying around. However, that happened long ago. Morocco won. You know, the format was different from then and now. So, but like you said, let's see how this
I like the good rumor.
Let's see how this pans out. Well, good morning. Welcome to Kakaki Sports. Well, it's a beautiful Monday morning, but not so beautiful for some people. Talking about Arsenal fans, precisely, I would say, because no most talked about game, anticipated one rather, in the English Premier League happened over the weekend yesterday, and it's looking like the title race is going to run away from Arsenal, the Emirates, this time around again. But people will say there's still so much time. Like how we saw Declan Rice, you know, echoing to his teammates yesterday after the game. It is not over. But some people will say it is over. However, we'll be getting into all the analysis, what happened, what could have been done better, and what should we look forward to going into the league as we climax the final season of the 2025-26 season of the English Premier League. And of course, also touch on the Nigerian Premier League, where it is also looking interesting. It's been back and forth between Rangers and Rivers United. This morning, Rangers is back on top of the table after match day 35. And then, I mean, just 3 more games left to be played in the league. Who will take this one home? It is still up for grabs for anybody. Between Rangers, Rivers, and maybe Ikorodu City. All that is also up for discussion this morning. And I'm not here alone. I'm being joined by my very consistent and reliable guest, Justice Ali. Justice, good morning, and welcome to Kakaki for this beautiful Monday morning. All right, Justice, if you can unmute yourself. I can't really hear you. All right, loud and clear. All right, so quickly now, Justice. I mean, you're smiling, but I mean, inside your heart, you're not smiling. So let's get right into it. Why you should be not be smiling, but you're smiling. Justice, the game happened over the weekend. It started with the English Premier League, of course. I mean, Arsenal lost that very critical, game there to Manchester City. The game that could have been a decider to whether they get the title after almost nearly 22 years of waiting for the title. What do you make of this game? What do you think Arteta did wrong, and what did Pep Guardiola did good and right to get him that 3 points and Arsenal to lose that one?
I'm smiling because I don't see any negatives from that game. I think the team gave their very best. And of course, Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, they've been in this situation several times. And so they have a psychological edge. And that is why you see them so that they came out top yesterday against Arsenal. For Mikel Arteta, I think his approach to the game was top-notch, drafting Eberechi Eze to the right wing, and also playing him alongside Martin Odegaard. Shows that he wanted to go all out to attack, and that was exactly what he did yesterday. It was a good game. It's just that they weren't clinical enough in front of goal. Eze and Kai Havertz, the culprits. But then we could see the resilience on the side. At full time, they can rise still believe strongly, as much as I do and so many Arsenal fans, that it's not over. It's not just about Arsenal dropping points. It's about what I've always said, that this Manchester City team is not as consistent as the team in the past. And so they have some features that I feel strongly they'll still drop points in, and this might just go down to the wire where a goal difference will be used to separate both sides. But I still feel strongly, like I've always told you, that you can't deny an idea whose time has come. I still feel that Arsenal has what it takes to win this one. All
right, now that takes me to the next question, and the very important one I would like to say. Do you think that with Pep Guardiola having just 6 points now apiece, 3 points, not even 6, apiece Arsenal in the game at hand, do you think Arsenal still stand a chance? Because now the talks are like, if they lost that game yesterday, there's no trophy for them. But are you optimistic that Arsenal will take this one home against Pep Guardiola, who we know is good at winning championships like this?
Well, Pep Guardiola has a game in hand, and on Wednesday they'll be playing against Burnley. But this is the English Premier League. Yes, in the English Premier League, you don't you don't count your chicks further before they are hatched. That game is yet to be played, and Burnley is one team that's in the relegation battle. If you take a look at the distance between Burnley, who are in the 19th position, and the team in the 18th position, the difference is much. But then there's also play for the pride, the badge of the Burnley team. So you wouldn't really write off any team. Even Wolves, who know that they are good as done this season, are still fighting hard. And of course, they took points off certain teams, top teams in the league this season. So let's see how it goes. Like I said, it's not even about Burnley. It's about going to Everton. It's about playing against Brentford and a couple of other matches that I feel strongly that Manchester City will not be able to get all the points out of. So, like I said earlier on, this one will go down to the very last day.
All right, to go down to the very last day. That's what most people are predicting, because it's looking like Arsenal will not give up. We saw Declan Rice there boldly telling his teammates it is not over. So yes, let's move away from now the English Premier League, of course, to the UEFA Champions League, where Arsenal also will still be going for the championship. That is the UEFA Champions Trophy, and they will be up against, Atletico Madrid just about 7 days from now. And looking at the Champions League, you see Atletico Madrid lost their game during the weekend. And also we had Arsenal, who lost their game to Man City. On the other side, it is Bayern Munich, who are now champions of the Bundesliga, up against PSG, who also lost their game in the league this season, during the weekend. How do you see this panning out in just 7 days from now, quickly, with Arsenal's form coming out of that loss against Man City, and of course, Bayern Munich getting that championship in the Bundesliga?
That gives them a lot of pushing going into the Champions League games, to know that you've wrapped up your domestic league, and so you have all the luxury, to chase the UEFA Champions League. I'm talking about Bayern Munich and even PSG, who have run away with the title in their various leagues. For Bayern Munich versus PSG, I think that is the game to watch. That is the game of the round. That should be by far one of the most entertaining games we're going to see in the UEFA Champions League thus far, because these two sides are very good going forward. They parade the best of attacks, and they play very nice and entertaining football. So that's, like I said, it's a very nice and mouth-watering game for all football fans who love to see teams play very good football. Michael Olise, Dembele, these are players that you could count on any day, anytime, coming head-to-head in the semi-finals. Or the same cannot be said of the other fixture, Atletico versus Arsenal. These two teams are notorious for playing boring football sometimes, when they choose to be very cautious of not losing. So Arsenal, Atletico might be one of the most boring games, like I said on my Facebook handle. One of the most boring games we've seen in the Champions League this season, if they both chose to sit back and watch that team play. But then it is also worthy of note that Arsenal has beaten the same Atletico Madrid side before in the group stage.
In the group stage
and
of Champions League.
So that explains why I feel that both teams might sit back and be very cautious of going forward in this semi-final game.
All right, well, we'll see that game, how it pans out. But Arsenal also wounded already going into that game. The title, the EPL title at hand, and it seems as though it's slipping off their hands. And going into the Champions League, they'll be hoping to grab something out of the Champions League, like you rightly said. Bayern Munich, there, congratulations to them for winning their championship, and they are gaining momentum. Their momentum is strong going into the UEFA Champions League in just about 7 days, the first leg of the semis. But now that takes us back home now, of course, to the Nigerian Premier League. Matches also went down, and at Justice, I will say it is more than just a competition right now, because it has been just back and forth between Rangers and Rivers, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks. And now Rangers are back on top of the table with 1 point, just separating them from Rivers United. Match day 36 is just upon us this weekend. But let's talk about match day 35, the result. Which one was the shocker for you, and which one, was you were impressed about?
Well, I'm impressed with Rangers International.
Of course.
Because at the time, Enyimba threatened to dent their title chase, but they were able to get the second goal to make it 2-1, and leapfrog Rivers United to the top of the league table. For Rivers United, they could not get the better of Kano Pillars right there in Kano. They lost 1-2, and it's interesting to know that they have just 3 matches to go, where Rangers International will be playing against Bayelsa United right there in Bayelsa before hosting Bender Insurance. Bender Insurance is a team that is in form right now. They won away from home, and they might be taking that momentum into the very concluding matches of the Nigerian Professional Football League. So Rangers have to be very careful against Bender Insurance. And then lastly, Korodu City will be hosting Rangers. These are the 3 matches that Rangers have to wrap up the season. For Rivers United, it's not going to be easy. Abia Warriors are there. Abia Warriors might want to do it for their Eastern brothers in Rangers. And they also have Wiki Tourists coming up against Rivers United. And lastly, they will be hosting Katsina United. So if you take a look at the fixtures remaining for these 2 sides contending for the title, I think Rangers have an upper hand, because the 3 teams they are playing against, if you check the records head-to-head, they have lost once in 7 games against 2 of those teams. And the other one, I think they've won all. So it's going to be very juicy going into the final 3 matches, but it's looking very much like Rangers. If they keep their head very cool and calm, they'll be able to get this over the line.
All right, Rangers are about to make it 9 all square with Enyimba International. When it comes to the Nigerian Premier League title, they are gunning for their 9th MPFA title against Rivers United. Rivers United also not laying back, because it's just 58, 1 point separating both sides on top of the table. Like Justice rightly said, it is going to be a very tough one going into the last lap of the game. Just 3 games left to be played, but the relegation zone, let's quickly talk about that. Remo Stars shockingly won a massive one, match day 35, to give their hopes of surviving relegation this season. Do you think they stand a chance going in, looking at the fixtures lined up for the remaining 3 matches?
Remo Stars, Enyimba, Niger Tornadoes, they are all on 43 points. And right now, mathematically, they are out of the relegation waters. So the fight is on. It's going to be interesting, both for the teams trying to win the league and for the teams, fighting relegation.
Yeah.
So every single match, every single minute, every single second this time around counts a lot. We have the Warri Wolves and some other teams from the 17th to 20th position, while Remo Stars, Enyimba, Niger Tornadoes, and Akwa United are all, floating on top of the relegation zone. So they have to give all they can. Actually, Enyimba, whom I continue to see as the, the face of Nigerian Football League, because they have been able to give their best to represent Nigeria in the continent. So they must avoid relegation at all costs. Not at the time when their Eastern brothers are lifting the trophy.
Okay. All right, okay. I mean, you're so optimistic that the Eastern brothers will lift the trophy. But quickly now, let's touch on the Nigerian Women's Football League. I mean, Group A has already picked their slot to the Super 6. We know the Super 6 is where teams contest for the championship title. Now, Group B is quite open with 4 teams in lineup for the Super 6 slots, which is just 3. Who do you think will make it out of Group B? Quickly, in 1 minute.
It's interesting how Group A has happened. Bayelsa Queens, Rivers Angels, Edo Queens, all on 1 point. And on the other side, we have FC Robo. They seem to have run away with that with 32 points. So Nasarawa Amazon, Remo Stars Ladies, as well as Abia Angels will be stugging it out. They are respectively on 20, 26, 24, 24 points. And they have just 3 matches to go. Practically, Robo are qualified. So these 3 teams, 1 will have to drop to pick up the other 2 that will gain FC Robo. All
right. Okay, we'll see what if that happens. Well, thank you so much. I'm Justice Ali for sharing your thoughts and analysis this morning on the weekend fixtures. Do have a great week ahead.
You too.
All right. Well, that's our package on Kakaki Sports this beautiful Monday morning. Thanks for being a part of it. I am Sivishima. Up next is the social intervention segment. Stay tuned.
And welcome to Get Fit in 60 Seconds with Jolly Phillips. Now, everyone has 60 seconds in every day to spare. So if you're ready, let's go! Well done! I hope you had a great workout. Anyway, what I need you to do is to follow us on Instagram at Alpha Fitness Studios and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alpha Fitness Studios, for free workout videos, free dance videos, sales and promos, and make sure you join us at the gym, Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1 next time you're in Lagos. So until the next time, bye-bye!
Hello, great people of Nigeria. Welcome to the Leadership Clinic. Today I'll be speaking on what I've simply titled, Mind the Company You Keep. There's an old saying, show me your friends and I will show you your future. It is an absolute truth that only those who lead, who have capacity to make a difference, who have dared to be the best they can ever be, these are those who can associate the facts of the matter to what we're talking about here today. So the 5 people you spend most of the time with will shape your thinking, your habits, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. If you surround yourself with complainers, you become a complainer. I was telling my staff this morning and I said, look, when you came on board, it came with so much energy. But it looks like you've started hanging out with some guys, some fellows. And so I can see it on you. If you surround yourself with dreamers who never execute, you will stay stuck in dreaming. Every day you wake up in the morning, you say you want to do, you want to be, you want to do A, B, C, D, E. And you never get them done. So if you surround yourself with people who cut corners, you will start cutting corners too. There's no 2 ways about it. But if you surround yourself with people of integrity, people with vision, people with discipline, people who just want growth, you rise to that level. This does not mean you abandon everyone who isn't successful. It means that you are intentional about who has great influence around you. I remember the days I was growing up, floating got me in my early days. Every time I wanted to hang around with those who have gone far ahead of me, people like Mr. Gabala Nosode, people like Professor Otomi, some of the great minds, I wanted to hang out with them. My peers then, people like Fela Durutoye, I mean, these were guys, Lanre Olushola, I mean, Nia Desina, these were all guys, we're all pushing to become outstanding and making a difference. I remember when we have conversations for hours about how to transform Nigeria, about to make a difference. At the end of the day, we are pumped up to actually make things happen. Do the people around you challenge you to grow? That's my question. Or do they keep you comfortable in mediocrity? For the political class, what are the type of people you hang out with? Are they those who talk about how to steal Nigeria dry? If you hang around with people with capacity to build this country as a politician, guess what? You'll be able to make a difference. You cannot soar with eagles if you're surrounded by chickens. Evaluate your circle, and if you need to create some distance from certain people, do it. Do it with love, but do it. And intentionally seek out people who inspire you to be the best that they can ever be. We need an association of politicians with honor and integrity who can drive growth and transform our great country. So be one today. Let's make it happen. Great people of Nigeria, you must remember, if a man doesn't have a purpose waking up, sleeping becomes interesting.
Have you ever wondered why security matters are becoming an issue in our society today? Is it the earlier you start to train your child in home and personal security matters, the easier it will all be? You need to train your kids on how to be smart with their safety by simply teaching them the following things to do. Number one, teach your kids to make an emergency call. Make sure they understand when they should do this. You see, many kids have saved a parent and even their siblings' life because they knew when and how to call the police or even a neighbor. 2, teach them the home emergency drills, how to get out of a house in a fire, what to do if a stranger is in the house, and so on. But make sure not to frighten them with this. All you need to do is explain to them so that they understand how to do it, and have them show you how they're going to do it so that you know they can actually do it, because doing is a better learning tool than listening. 3, help your children be on the lookout, for situations or actions that make them feel very uncomfortable, rather than certain kinds of people. So you need to teach them what a stranger is without teaching them that all strangers are bad or dangerous, because almost any stranger a child walks up to, if they are in trouble, will definitely help them. So only a very small percentage of some strangers will be a problem, and the problem ones will probably be very obvious. Finally, teach your children the home telephone numbers, the home address, daddy's telephone number, mommy's telephone number, your office addresses, the doctor's telephone number, and even family friends' mobile number and their home address. So remember to always be security conscious. Honestly, that's my 2 kobo.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Well, thank you for staying with us. It's now time for us to bring you our newspaper review this morning. And indeed, I'm not alone doing this, even though one of the male champions is a bit under the weather, won't be joining us virtually. But Lemmy Obe is here, all in his son and glory. Good morning, Lemmy. How are you?
Good morning. It's good to be here.
How was your weekend?
Busy, but grateful to God.
Fantastic. I'm sure you would have wanted it 3 days or 4 more days. Line up in the weekend. So let's start up in earnest here, and we start with the Authority newspaper. And what we see as a lead here is Nigeria versus World Bank. Federal government denies diverting 34 trillion naira revenue from Federation account. FAC deduction misinterpreted, says Finance Ministry. And that's what we find on the front page of the Authority newspaper. We also want to look at that Daily Monitor's lead, and then it also speaks to the same lead, but from a different perspective. Says federal government denies heeding spending, diversion of federation revenue. Says refunds, transfers to state, other tiers of government are not leakages. And that's the writing story to that. And of course, you find other stories there. Sarah Tinubu withdraw NBC's unlawful directive to broadcasters, and that's above the masthead of the Daily Monitor. Let's look at the Inquirer Abuja this morning. Pressure mounts on INEC chair to resign. Utomi Falana joined cause. But leaving that is still World Bank report. Federal government dismisses missing revenue claim. Obi alleges over 34 trillion naira not remitted to FAC. Atiku kicks, bemoans organized hardship. Church begs Tinubu over hunger and insecurity. And that's the riding factor for the Inquirer this morning. Standard Times takes it still from the World Bank report, and it says federal government denies heeding spending claims, says World Bank report misread. And you find that just below the Standard Times masthead on the front page of their newspaper. Daily Global, looks at ADC allegation, says Tinubu's government planning to reintegrate repentant terrorists into society. ADC alleges, and that's what you find there as the lead story, front page newspaper. And you also want to look at the New Telegraph. Insecurity is still taking its way there. Reintegration dangerous as terrorism existential threat to nation. And that's coming from ADC. What you also want to look at, that story from the World Bank is still there, right at the bottom page story. No missing funds in revenues, fact deductions, federal government. And that's what we also see. They say high salt intake may worsen memory loss. And that's from study just at the bottom page on page 30. But Nigerian pilot is looking at stop reintegrating ex-terrorists. And that's what you find on page 8. And says some riders, ADC wants federal government insist that no ex-terrorists should be reintegrated without prosecution. Ones that move could send wrong signal to victims, others who may be considering violence. And that's what we find there on the front page of the Nigerian pilot. You may also want to look at other papers there. Daily Asset is still looking at abducted UTME candidates regained freedom, seek second chance. Alia urges exam receipt for abducted students. Board releases nearly 1.9 million results, and that's on page 2 of the Daily Asset. You may also want to look at that story there on the front page of the Daily Asset, coming to you on the front page newspapers. Now, we also want to look at another story there coming from the New Telegraph. Reintegration story has been mentioned. Daily Asset talks about the UTME. Daily Sun, ADC splits over presidential ticket. Party leaders divided over Atiku, Obi Amechi Kwakwanso. And party leaders divided over Atiku, Obi Amechi Kwakwanso. And that's what we look at the Daily Sun. But opposite the masthead of the Daily Sun, we see rising fuel energy costs, driving Nigeria's inflation, and that's coming from experts, and that's coming from the Daily Sun. But let's also look at the Observer Times. Observer Times is still looking at the lead, saying ADC wants federal government insists that no ex-terrorists should be reintegrated without prosecution. Ones that move could send wrong signal to victims, others who may be considering violence. And that's the writing story there on page 1. You may also want to look at the fact the 2027 Nasarawa governor didn't consult me on successor. And that's coming from Almakura. Interestingly, that's going to be one of our talking points this morning on the front page of the newspaper. Observer brings it clearly there. And then we also have other papers there this morning, and we're looking at Al Jazeera, Nigeria, State of the Nation, what must be done, Okiro, and that's coming from Al Jazeera, Nigeria, front page. You may also want to look at other stories there. Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, push for West Africa integration at IPU Assembly, and that's on page 9, bottom page. You would see that there in the story. But let's move to Blueprint. Blueprint looks at the IMF story, but in an interesting headline narrative, says, you goofed on IMF reports. Federal government knocks Atiku others. Say statutory allocations not heeding spending, diversion. World Bank wants nations' economic reforms sustained. Oyedele, ex-VP differs. And that's what you see as the lead story from the blueprint. You goofed on IMF reports, and that's federal government knocking Atiku and others. You may also want to look at that story. Middle East, Shiites protest in Bauchi, U.S. delegates peace team to Pakistan. And that's some stories on security on the front page of Blueprint. But the disclosure news this morning looks at backlash trails new NBC Code of Conduct advisory to broadcast journalists. Backlash trails new NBC Code of Conduct advisory to broadcast journalists. It's another attempt to restrict free press. Atiku, Hayatuddin, others kick. You have no such powers, Amnesty International, Serap tell NBC. Tinubu's aide backs controversial order, slams ex-VP, and that's on page 2 of the disclosure. That's the lead, actually, for this morning. Backlash trails new NBC Code of Conduct advisory to broadcast journalists, and that's what we find there. But then you see an outcry. They want to implicate me in criminal activities to keep me in custody. El-Rufai cries out, and that's on page 2. Says attempt to deliberately designed to tarnish his image, and that's on the bottom page of the disclosure. Now, from disclosing that, we go to the business diary openly. What we see here as the lead story here is economic activity soar in states as political parties prepare for governor's primary election. And that's on page 2 of the business day. But you also have some business stories there just below the masthead. Experts load 68.3 trillion naira 2026 budget flag debt burden, capital spending risk. And that's what you find there on the front page. The Business NG, however, looks at pressure builds on Nigeria's economy as foreign reserves fall since March 2026. And that's the lead story. You may also want to look at the rider saying projected to fall to $47 billion. CBN vows to raise reserves to $51 billion. And that's what you find there. But opposition in disarray as LP, PDP, and ADC struggle to field 2027 presidential candidates. And that's what you find front page of the Business NG. Some political stories on the business side. Now, Nigerian News Direct looks at domestic taxation now a matter of survival for aid-dependent nations. And that's from IMF. Domestic taxation now a matter of survival for aid-dependent nations, and that's coming from IMF there. But Oyedola clarifies, fact deductions, refunds to states, MDAs not heeding spending, and that's another story, front page, Nigerian News Direct. This Nigeria this morning, however, looks at help us. Rice farmers decry rising imports. Help us. Rice farmers decry rising imports. Increase in importation, crippling local cultivation, and keeping a lot of farmers out of business. And that's the rider to that story. You also want to look at terror kingpin killed in factional clash. Military intensifies operations in Northwest. Rescued 13 kidnapped Benue links passengers. And that's what you find, bottom page story. The whistler is whistling loudly. This time, OT repays 141 billion naira out of 191 billion naira inherited Abia debt. And that's the lead story for the whistler. Slashes debt burden by 74% to 48 billion naira in 3 years. And that's what you find as the rider to that story. Federal government, rather FCT teachers begin indefinite strike today is also part of the bottom page story there, with Serap gives NBC 48 hours to withdraw controversial directive coming on page 14. And that's about what we have this morning running to you as front page stories and headline stories this morning. So let's get quickly into the conversation this morning and maybe perhaps start with what the whole papers are saying as a lead, apart from that on the NBC story. Nigeria versus World Bank, Lemmy. Federal government denies diverting 34 trillion naira from Federation account.
It's really an interesting development. Let's say clearly that we do not expect federal government to come out and admit that there was such diversion. But it is very clear from the World Bank reports and that about 34 billion is missing, and it's not accounted for. And the World Bank report clearly states that even though there is that increase in revenue, that it is not in any way reflected in the spending by government. There is a discrepancy of about 34 billion, and it's a serious matter. The idea that government would deny, for instance, the Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Taiwo Oyedele, has come out to even, in fact, as much as said the report was misunderstood and misinterpreted. We have very competent finance and business correspondents across the various newspapers. And of course, the opposition itself has experts in economy and, finance. And they've sat down to review a report that was not written in Latin. It's written in black and white in plain, simple English. And it is clear that government owes us explanation. There is not supposed to be such level of secrecy in government. The opacity with which funds are managed or mismanaged has come to the fore. Nigeria has a way of jumping hallelujah, our government, when the IMF or World Bank reports give us positive, some plaudits. So this time around, the World Bank report has stated clearly its concern. And that concern cannot be wished away with the grammar spoken by Taiwo Oyedele. We know as a people that we do not expect that our government will come today and tell us, yes, that happened. But a more responsible and responsive way to respond to such a development is to even put us on hold by saying, we will look at it. We think that the World Bank got its report wrong in this regard. Will, however, be open-minded enough to look at it. That way, you would have even made Nigerians to begin to feel that, okay, this is a better way to respond. Perhaps there is really a mistake. And this is one of the things the current government lacks. Strategic and development communication from government is very, it's missing. And the idea that you are a finance expert, you see, we must know the right people to ask to respond to some of these things. Taiwo Oyedele, as Minister of Finance, does not have the training of a strategic and development communicator, and therefore would only give some tame denials. I already know from the World Bank report and from the reactions of government that there is enough to look into in that manner. And therefore, we must all as citizens demand that government explains properly, not by wishing it away. We cannot have citizens make huge sacrifices while those who are in power, spend money in a way that is not accounted for. And this is the concern. We can't ignore it. Government must respond to it. And this is part of why we get concerned, because you would see the development that has come out from the NBC, where they're already wanting, the media is already gagged, as it were. They want to gag the media.
That was on a lot of papers as well. From
even Daily Trust, Amnesty, CSO, FLE, NBC over directives to broadcasters. Now, because government does not want to be subjected to, transparency and accountability test, they find a way to continually, the elections are coming near, campaigns are already on, even if the Independent National Electoral Commission has not, thrown the door open for people to start campaigns. Campaigns are on, and they are concerned. The same ruling party that had such freedom in their time when Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan was president, they had freedom to act as opposition and deploy the media and use all sorts of tactics. are today scared about being called to account. So, of course, what it means is that if the new NBC directives were to come to light and they are to be enforced, it means that anchors of programs and commentators who manage one program or the other on television will not be able to address these concerns of Nigerians by not asking questions. It's very disingenuous to want to gag the media, to want to stop. The role of the media is to hold government to account. When government is doing its thing in secrecy and in opacity, media must remain the bastion of freedom to hold the government accountable. So I do think, again, that part of why government and the NBC has come with such a directive is to ensure that such developments that have emerged from the World Bank report does not come to the fore, or they intimidate anchors when they are doing interviews not to ask the crucial questions. You see that when government officials appear on the Nigerian television platforms, you see that they bully their way through conversation. They don't even want to answer the questions. Anchors ask questions and they set new questions that they would answer. But when they go abroad, they have no choice than to respond. And we have seen the fallouts, especially with Mr. Daniel Bwala, who says prior questions were not given to him about his past comment about the then candidate, now president of the country. So it's important that citizens are vigilant, citizens are alert. I am appreciative of NGOs like SERAP and Amnesty International that call to the voiceless and support the media.
Fair, equitable, and transparent. The next lead pilot did run with that, Daily Global, New Telegraph, and I'm sure you saw that story. ADC accuses the government of trying to reintegrate terrorists, and that would mean, badly for those who are considering violence. Some of the writers of the papers did look at that as some of their lead as well.
Yes, I also, on the back page of This Nigeria, my column on the back page of This Nigeria is titled The De-Radicalization Crossroads. Nigeria at the De-Radicalization Crossroads. Yes, globally, because whether we accept it or not, it is noble on our part to admit that global best practices, that they look at each case on its merits. We've seen it happen in Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, different parts of the world, that they look at each case on its merit and say, okay, this person, is he really a terrorist, an insurgent, or was he compelled into it? They do a lot of investigations, they come to a conclusion, and the de-radicalization process does not take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. If you have been radicalized and you have become a terrorist or a supporter of terrorism, you cannot just in the name of Operation Safe Corridor just think that within a few months you de-radicalize people. But on its merit, yes, there are people who found themselves caught by these terrorists and they were taken, into their custody and forced to begin to work for them. Do we have enough patience and time to investigate each case on its merit and begin to say this one is worthy of it? If anybody has participated in terrorism to the extent that people have been killed, does it also make any common sense at all, or uncommon sense in this sense, to now bring them and say you are de-radicalizing them, you are doing ceremonies, feeding them, giving them money, reintegrating them into society? Do we have the facility to track people who have been allegedly de-radicalized? that when you release them into the society, who monitors them? Who is able to look at where they are and what they are doing? So it still portends danger for the country, especially with sentiments expressed by people like Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the NSA, referring to these killers, murderous criminals, as our brothers. And he says, if your body has cancer, do you cut it off? And we say yes, even in medicine, because that's marked of ignorance on the part of Nuhu Ribadu. In medicine, if you have breast cancer, the easiest thing that is recommended is you take that particular breast off before it begins to spread tumor across other parts. That is what you do. And so that was a wrong position, but it expresses the concerns of Nigerians, because if the NSA sees people who have killed even generals, soldiers, Nigerian innocent citizens as our brothers, they will treat them with kid gloves, which is part of why the reintegration is on. Then you have the Chief of Army Staff, who needs to take some more Bible lessons, who referred to them as prodigal sons, and was justifying why the reintegration and forgiveness occurs. And the story, biblical story of the prodigal son, is that all he did was collect his money, his inheritance, and he went and squandered it. At no time was it documented or recorded that the prodigal son killed anybody. So when you have people who are in the security architecture get themselves, their thoughts wrong, you would have, of course, let's be fair to say they are not the ones who started the Operation Safe Corridor. Operation Safe Corridor was started under the administration of the late president, then President Muhammadu Buhari. And from that point, Nigerians complained about it because the successive service chiefs came up with that idea, supporting it, and doing whatever it took. But we do not have the facilities to even monitor people. Let's assume there are 10 persons who, in the lot were innocent and were compelled into it, and you feel that you have successfully de-radicalized them. How do you monitor them? We don't have boots on ground. We don't have enough personnel.
Some say they may go and become intel for
It's a danger. We do not have what it takes to genuinely de-radicalize and reintegrate people. So if they are taken to courts, and that is why we must commend the Attorney General of Federation and Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who, I think the penultimate week, conducted a mass trial where about 500 Boko Haram members were subjected to proper trial. Now, you look at it and you try to balance, because the only deterrence against criminality and acts like such as terrorism is that the law takes its course, they are brought to justice. If what you do is to pamper terrorists, then you are incentivizing terrorism so much that more people will freely be recruited in. So it is important that the President and Commander-in-Chief gives more support to the Office of the Attorney General of Federation, so that we can have people who have been arrested, people who have been caught over acts of terror, not to be reintegrated, but to be given their day in court. If there is no credible evidence to convict them, and the court reaches such a position, then you can now subject them to Operation Safe Corridor and talk about reintegration. But without taking them first through the gamut of the law, you just become accuser, judge, and jury. And that is what the military does through the Operation Safe Corridor. We get conviction, then you can talk of forgiveness. You are deemed not to have even committed anything by Operation Safe Corridor. You are seen to be the victim. Whereas people who have been killed in their numbers and families who have been thrown into perpetual mourning in darkness are the ones who are left. Do you know the number of IDP camps, undocumented IDP camps, the number of people who are there, survivors, but they have not gotten the attention of government to the point of saying Operation Safe Corridor. So Operation Safe Corridor is not for innocent citizens who are in IDP camps, who have not been reintegrated, returned to their ancestral homes. Operation Safe Corridor is for terrorists who are now made to look like victims. I think the government has got its policy totally wrong, and I do not have hope and faith in the country that we will get it right when we have an NSA like Mala Ribadu, and you have the Chief of Army Staff, Oluyede, General Oluyede, who will come out and make terrorists who have killed Nigerians in droves to look like saints and victims.
So well, if I hear you correctly, I'm also thinking that you're saying rather than, put energy and resources to that, perhaps look at more welfare for the military and more boots on ground and the social psychological, situation for a lot of the soldiers who have come out to say we would need more to be on ground.
We must support the military, I agree. But we must get the president and commander-in-chief to say this policy is wrong, this policy is retrogressive, this policy further, the Operation Safe Corridor policy further exposes Nigerians to more danger because we do not have the facilities, we do not have the time of the day to reintegrate and track these so-called de-radicalized terrorists. It takes years to de-radicalize a willing criminal who really wants to come to repentance. It takes years. It is not a matter of months. And even when you do that, you monitor, you track. We do not have that facility. So the policy is wrong. The policy is negative. The policy is part of why the terrorism battle has not been won, because we bring them back into society, they become agents again and endanger the Nigerian people.
Indeed. Let's also hope that they're listening to you on that child, because of course the federal government just also passed the Kampala Convention and looking at domestic, and you talked about IDPs, which is a big community of persons displaced. But pressure builds on Nigeria's economy as foreign reserves fall since March 2026. Quickly, in 2 minutes.
Yes. It's expected. There's a lot that is being done with foreign reserves. We know that in trying to keep the dollar, the naira a bit strong, the Nigerian, the CBN has been helping to manage the stability of the naira by giving forex to BDCs operators. That's one way they are using to shore up the money. Then, of course, we have not also started producing. We have remained a consumer nation. We are not a producer nation. And so if we are relying on our forex to make purchases, importations that we are making, naturally it will fall. And we have our work cut out. Unfortunately, Nigeria right now is more occupied with politics than with governance, politics of 2027, and that's the reason we're unable to look at real existential issues. Nigerians are in dire straits. Nigerians now cannot, majority of Nigerians are not sure of a meal per day. And that is why we say that this government should actually look at issues of governance more than of politics. If you get your governance right, you would have advertised yourself well enough for re-election. That is, for me, the best way to advertise, not to campaign, not coming to tell a man who has not fed his family for a complete 48 hours, telling him that you are doing well. That is not the way to go. Government is still involved in opacity and ostentatious spending, while the citizens are made to make sacrifices and be fed with a diet of patience, and there is no such diet.
All right, thank you, Lemmy, for that. And that's Cotton Call there on Newspaper Review this morning. So a lot has been said and a lot has been explained this morning by Lemmy. Lemmy, thank you so much for starting our week in such a good, charge-making stance. All right, and talking about politics, we do know that all is heating up in Nasarawa State. Politics of consensus, of choice, of the old guards, but that'll be after the break. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content, follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
People, politics, and power brings context and clarity to issues and events in governance, democracy, and development. On People, Politics, and Power, we feature people who shape the events and define the issues.
A lot of the agencies are still struggling with implementation of freedom of information.
The government should come. We need Nigeria to work.
We examine the interplay and interaction of politics with power and their impact on policies and the people.
It's about getting the system to deliver the kind of electoral outcome that people will be happy with.
People, Politics, and Power with Imoni Amarere.
Will low-performing agencies be held to account? Or will the numbers fade after the headlines?
At 1 p.m. every Monday and Friday on AIT. Where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program, Inside the Parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The burden of proving that the elections have been conducted peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the president.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The questions are tough. The exchanges are intense.
Mr. President, you can have your way, but I will have my say. You can use the gavel, and I will use my voice.
And those who want the proviso are 55 in number. And so the proviso says.
But who truly stands for the people? Who is driving the change that defines our tomorrow?
Let us tell ourselves the truth. Why are we here talking about LGBT, GTBT, whatever?
Get the answers on Where Nigeria Decides on Inside the Parliament on AIT every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m.
Thank you for staying with us. Like I said earlier, we're talking Nasarawa State, and indeed the political landscape is heating up. And now they say following Governor Abdullahi Sule's official endorsement of Senator Ali Wadada as his successor, what began as a quiet visit to the presidential villa on Friday has set the Nasarawa State APC on a collision course. And that's what we're here to look at, get some insights and really know what's happening within the APC in Nasarawa State. And I have joining me virtually Al Hassan Doma, Director Operations and Command, Mohammed Abubakar Damu 2027 campaign team, and Yarus Dagusa, Secretary All Progressive Congress, Nasarawa State as well. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. Now, it's all heating up in Nasarawa State. I mean, everybody says there's a lot of tension with what the governor has done in terms of choosing his, preferred candidate ahead of time. Some say it is a bit premature by the old guard, and some say, no, the governor is within his rights to do just that. But what are your takes on this?
Thank you. Thank you for this privilege to discuss some of these issues that are emerging from Nasarawa State. From the outset, I would say that the governor is right to have taken the decision that he has taken, because it is timely. We have just about a month now to the primary elections as outlined by the party And I feel that His Excellency has right to take his decision to identify who should succeed him. So he has not done anything wrong, for now.
All right, so I'm going to come to you on the need, or whether the need to have consulted with the elder statesmen in the state was really paramount before that step was taken. But let me go to Al Hassan Doma, who's joining us virtually. Al Hassan, good morning, and thank you for joining us. Good morning. If you can hear me, please, if you can unmute your device.
Good morning, and how are you?
Fantastic. I can hear you. Thank you so much. Now, I mean, you've listened to Yaris, who says that the governor is within his rights to make, that attempt, or the choice of a candidate he prefers ahead of the elections, ahead of the primaries. But let's come to you. What exactly has Governor Sule done wrong by endorsing Senator Aliyu Wadada?
Well, as far as we're concerned, that is the governor, and as an individual, not as a party. We're talking about what belongs to the people. So for him to say he has, that is his personal right. But there is no prerogative power that gives him the right to say, okay, this is the exact person I want to succeed me. There is no constitutional provisions for that. Well, as an individual, because he is the governor and a member of the party, he feels he wants someone to succeed him. That's perfect. Nobody is against that. Secondly, politics has process. Process in the sense that at the point there are consultations, there should be no discrimination against any aspirant who is contesting. This should be a home affairs. And in being a home affairs, it has to carry all the provisions, the electoral acts, the party guidelines, and everything. I don't know whether he's the secretary of the party. I don't know whether in the party guidelines or provisions, they provided a place that the governor must be the one who is going to be the one that is going to appoint someone that will succeed him. And I want to remind them, the governor himself, while he was contesting, Senator Morutanku Almakura was the governor of Nasarawa State in 2019. Has not just come out like that and blindly just pick to say, okay, this is the exact person I want to succeed me. Processes were made, consultations were made, communities were invited, groups were brought together. We have so many processes that were undergone through that process before it gets to primary election. So, for me, I am not saying the governor is wrong, but I'm saying the process the governor takes to do that is automatically wrong. And that is what belongs to the people. Now, see, the party act or the electoral acts that the president have just signed provided processes and then two factors or two sides of either providing a candidate of the party. Now, if he wished that he wanted this person to be his successor, he should allow the person to follow the due process of the party, follow the due process of the electoral act, and arrive at that, not just overnight, one time, he just picked him and then said, okay, this is the person I wanted, after allowing all aspirants spending their resources, consulting, going to communities, meeting party, making party active, providing support to the party, making all resources available, and then overnight you just call to say, okay, I want this person. What do you expect the other ones to do? Step down? Run away?
All right, let me come back to Yarusi. I mean, you've listened to him, Kinley. He's talked about personal political preference, which the governor does have, and he's also talked about party politics and procedure. Again, he's also talked about the need for neutrality in this process, and that this removes the essence of neutrality and perhaps the fair playing ground for other aspirants who are either trying to contest or campaigning to contest to win the primaries. Do you think that this sort of, perhaps alters the process of fairness and neutrality within the APC, caucus in Nasarawa State?
I think the governor has even tried to be fair to all the parties and to all the aspirants. To the build-up for the 2027 elections, His Excellency took time to discuss with stakeholders in the state, consulted with stakeholders.
Including Amakura?
Including Amakura. Because at the stakeholders meeting, His Excellency declared his interest that he was going to support a candidate from the Western Zone. Western Zone comprises 5 local government areas of the state: Kokona, Kefi, Karu, Nasarawa, Toto. That constitutes the Western Zone. I said, we're going to support a candidate from the Western Zone. This is because it has been the practice, a tradition in the state, that a particular zone should not continue to produce a governorship candidate or a governor for the state all through. And that is why in 1999, Abla Adamu came from the Western Zone. In 2007, Ali Akwe came from the Southern Zone. 2011, Almakura came from the Southern Zone again and spent 8 years, making a total of 12. And by 2019, His Excellency Senator Almakura brought A.A. Sule, Engineer A.A. Sule, from the Northern Zone. What Engineer A.A. Sule has done is just to follow the tradition of the elder statesmen, the former governors that have come before him. And they did that, and he has only repeated, or he has only done what they did. And during the stakeholders meeting, he mentioned it. And he told them this is what he was going to do. So they are aware that this is his intention, this is his desire, so that the state can have fairness, equity, and justice.
But do you think that the party's internal machinery was consulted? Because in some of the reports that we also listened to, I mean, earlier on in the news, you know, His Excellency Almakura, former governor of Nasarawa State and senator, said, you know, yes, Sule was his political son, but must do things the right way by getting the internal machinery of the political parties involved. If not, it seems to eschew other people whose interests are also in the ring.
Like I said, Engineer A.A. Sule consulted widely. He consulted with the stakeholders of the state. Even during stakeholders meeting, he mentioned it. Now, I wouldn't know whether His Excellency Senator Almakura wanted him to go and sit down with him and discuss privately, which I wouldn't know. Of course, they usually do. They meet. The times they meet and discuss, I wouldn't know. But one thing I know is that Engineer Abla A. Sule consulted everyone that he thought he should consult in this respect. And there is nothing in the party machinery that has been violated. Because during the build-up to this process, the party caucus met towards the Congress, before the Congresses were held. The party caucus met, and he mentioned that for fairness, let us have a governor that will come from the Western Zone. He didn't mention who he was going to nominate, whom he was going to support, but he has always indicated that the governor was going to come from the Western Zone. And among the 9 or 10 aspirants, he has met with them severally and mentioned to them that they should know that only one person can occupy that office at a point in time. Therefore, he was going to nominate or was going to support one person that will be the governor that will succeed him. And I know after the National Convention, His Excellency Engineer Abla A. Sule met with stakeholders in Abuja here. After meeting with them, he told them this is what he wanted to do. He met with the aspirants, gave the aspirants the opportunity to go and select among themselves, let them agree among themselves, who should bear the flag of the party. They returned and told him that they couldn't do it themselves. He should go ahead and pick one of them.
Including Abubakar Adamu himself, a top contender.
Pardon?
Abubakar Adamu, former Inspector General of Police.
Former Inspector General of Police is from the Southern Zone. It's from the Southern Zone, where Engineer Abla A. Sule says there shouldn't be anybody coming from that zone. However, during the primary elections...
Hello, please, can I come in?
He could he could participate. But the fact is that Engineer Abdullah Esule would prefer somebody from the Western Zone.
Let me bring in Al Hassan here. Al Hassan, I hear you saying, I know you want to say something, but while you're going to make that comment and your perhaps a summary back to what Yaris has said, again, one is asking, what makes you unhappy about this endorsement? Now, is it the time of the endorsement, the communication of it to the presidency, or the response from the presidency?
Yes, everything is making everybody unhappy, not just me. One, I still maintain the governor doesn't have the right to nominate a candidate of the party. The party has an electoral act. It is either by consensus or by direct primaries, and that is what is given to everybody in the party as a member of the party. So the governor can feel like, said, okay, I want this person to go in. And I want to go back to my MNI brother, Mr. Yaros Dakusa, which I know. He knows actually that whatever he is saying about zoning has never worked in Nasarawa State. There is no place, there is no document. Okay, if he's saying there is zoning, who brought Abdullah Adamu? On which zoning arrangement that Abdullah Adamu came in? We want to know. We're asking questions so that we should understand where we're heading to. We're all one party. And if he understands, Abdullah Adamu came under PDP. That's not APC. And Aliu Akwe, who came also under PDP, that's not CPC, that is not APC. Al-Makura, who came later, was under CPC and now translates to APC, where he came. And Al-Makura himself, point blank, has been mentioning he didn't bring Abdullah Sule for any zoning arrangement. Of course, it was an issue of brother's keeper. If we're talking about zoning, we have criteria of zonings. Religion is part of zoning, ethnicity is part of zoning, and other constituency arrangement is part of zoning. So who did the arrangement? And then let me come back to the question you said, why we are unhappy. Of course, yes, we are not happy because the process is not followed. There is nowhere, okay, the party officials will say, when did they sit down to agree on the consensus? Meetings, yes, Abdullah Isule has been holding meetings. We are not blaming him for holding meetings. Yes, he has done meetings. And for Al-Makura to come out and say he is not consulted in the issue of picking a decision of one single candidate is about politics and its procedures. Politics is for the people. And we're bringing government of the people, by the people, for the people. No one can just sit down somewhere alone, prerogatively or claiming this particular right to pick someone and then directly moving to the presidency to go and show the president that this is my candidate. Okay, that means they have violated the whole electoral act. Are they agreeing to that? Because the electoral act says consensus. And the procedures of the consensus is that all these aspirants must sit down together, agree to pick one person. And they must all write in those and send to the party, and the party sends to INEC. Did they want to squash our APC in Nasarawa State? Because at the end of the day, did they want us to go into litigations? Or did they want us to start talking about issues and fight comes in and then the opposition takes? They want to throw us into opposition? This party has been suffered by people who have nothing this party, brought this party to stay, and now today somebody, the governor, yes, we respect the governor's opinion, but the governor should be able to make it even in a manner that it is going to follow the due process. Let him make that candidate follow the due process. This candidate refused to go to grassroots. Let me be frank with you. And he is saying IGP, former IGP, is from Nasarawa South. When Al-Makura was bringing Abdullah Isule, Senator Wadada, who was pointed today to say,
out there. I do hope that we get him back into the conversation, because he was just about to make a remark there that perhaps would lay some of the insights. I come back to you guys. You've listened to him. How do you respond?
Yeah, I think we should put this in the right perspective. If he's questioning the coming of Abdullah Adamu in 1999 on what arrangement it was, that was the return to democracy. The return to democracy in 1999 brought Abdullah Adamu. And by 2007, Abdullah Adamu decided that the governorship should not come from the western zone or from the north, it should come from the southern zone, from another zone. It is an unwritten agreement, an arrangement that is being done for fairness, for peace, peaceful coexistence, for equity, so that the state can remain as one. There's nothing wrong in zoning arrangement, nothing. And when Tunku Amakura brought Engineer A. Sule, he made mention to the party. Probably my brother is not aware. Senator Amakura mentioned it to the party that this was his candidate. So by the time they went to primaries, everyone was already aware that Engineer Abdullah Sule was Senator Amakura's candidate. Everyone was aware. Even though Senator Wadada also participated in the primaries, just like we said, everyone is going to participate in the primaries. However, A. Sule has indicated that this is his candidate, just like Amakura did. They all go to the primaries.
But don't you think, I mean, looking at, I'm sure you followed the president's official X handle, where it was stated that, and labeled Wadada as the APC consensus candidate for Nasarawa State.
No, that is.
And you know, that alone, that perhaps written alteration speaks to the volumes to those who would want to get into the ring as the kingmaker. The ultimate kingmaker is the president. And when you have that kind of narrative, you know, posted on public social media, it also already informs others that, listen, guys, I mean, this is a waste of time. This is who the Nasarawa state government wants, and the president is in line with the consensus candidate. And perhaps that's what he's also perhaps leaning on, that already limits the possibility of, you know, emergence of any other aspirant because this has been done.
No, I think that is just the perspective of the press. I'm not sure that at the presidency, the president mentioned that this is, or Engineer Abdullah Sule mentioned to the president that this is a consensus candidate. He simply would have told him that this is the person that I have interest to support, to succeed me among the many aspirants. Like I said, there are 9 aspirants from Western Zone. And all of them well qualified. Just like our uncle and father, the former IGP, is qualified to contest for governorship. However, in the interest of the state, for the peaceful coexistence of Nasarawa State, we are saying, or the governor is saying, that let there be zoning. If he says Amakura didn't zone, but that he mentioned, he talking of brother's keeper, it's just a matter of semantics. I don't play semantics, it's just language.
Yes.
It's just language. What is brother's keeper? What is zoning? If you are doing a brother's keeper, it means you are interested in the welfare of somebody, and therefore you want to protect it. And he protected the interests of the Northern Zone, where he brought out Engineer Abdullah Sule. So let us continue with the brother's keeper for Western Zone. Let's continue with the brother's keeper for Western Zone and continue with brother's keeper for other political offices so that everything will go on smoothly and we'll live at peace with one another. If, for instance, we're asking that the party is been doing everything to ensure that we reconcile all these differences.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want us to continue, to dwell on these issues. Rather, we should go home and solve our problems.
And bridge the gap.
Yes.
All right, let me come back to you, Al-Hassan. Perhaps he's saying it's a matter of semantics. So let's move away from using the word consensus and say brother's keeper. So he says in the guise of brother keeping, that's what exactly the governor of Nasarawa State has done. How do you respond quickly, because we have to go for Kakaki Socials?
See, it's not semantic here. I'm still standing on it that there has been nothing like zoning in Nasarawa State. And so if he's even talking about brothers keeper, okay, all the brothers have tested the power. All the brothers, all the zones, so it should be thrown free. And the governor himself has said he's going to throw this thing free and fair. So why now rushing to pick someone? Why now rushing to say this is the person I prepared? You have mentioned, during the meeting, he has mentioned, the secretary of the party there has mentioned, that they've done a lot of stakeholders meeting and everything, and he has said it. And I'm happy too. I want to quote the secretary, and that even the governor himself, after saying Wadada is his preferred candidate, he has mentioned clearly that because he said this is preferred candidate does not mean he must win the election. So I want them to send this thing free and fair. Everybody will participate. There has been no restriction of participation in election. No restriction. We are students of democracy. We are students of politics. We want it. And then what are they trying to teach us, the younger generations that are coming? And he's talking about keeping the state peace. I want to quote him, and I believe everybody is listening to him. So if it is not like that, it means Nasarawa State will tear. Then they are...
All right, I think that with that pause in his expression will probably come back to you. Al Hassan will come back to you, but we'll take a quick break and then we'll go to Kakaki Socials. And when we come back, the conversation is not ending here. We'll continue right after that.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
People, politics, and power brings context and clarity to issues and events in governance, democracy, and development. On People, Politics, and Power, we feature people who shape the events and define the issues.
A lot of the agencies are still struggling with implementation of freedom of information.
The government should come. We need Nigeria to work.
We examine the interplay and interaction of politics with power and their impact on policies and the people.
It's about getting the system to deliver the kind of electoral outcome that people will be happy with.
People, Politics, and Power with Imoni Amarere.
Will low-performing agencies be held to account? Or will the numbers fade after the headlines?
At 1 p.m. every Monday and Friday on AIT. In the hallowed chambers where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program inside the parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The burden of proving that the elections have been conducted peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the president.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NIPR, in collaboration with the Kaduna State Government, invites you to the Nigeria Public Relations Week. Theme: Food Security, from policy paper to public place, the imperatives of public relations. Tuesday 21st to Friday 24th April 2026. Venues: New Banquet Hall, Sir Kashim Ibrahim House, and Musa Iridua Center, Murtala Square, Kaduna, 10 a.m. day. Special guest of honor, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Guests of honor: Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, FNIPR, Minister of Livestock Development, Alhaji Idi Mukhtar Meha. Keynote speaker, Dr. Brilin Chitsunge, Pan-African Parliament Ambassador for Food Security, South Africa. Chief host, His Excellency Senator Obas Sani, CON, Executive Governor of Kaduna State. Host, Dr. Ikene Liaku, President NIPR. Contact Ahmed Miyaki, Commissioner for Information, Stanley Ogadigo, Director of Public Relations, Announcer.
The leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, cordially invites all members of the National Executive Committee, NEC, to its 108th meeting, scheduled as follows. Date: Monday, 20th April 2026. Venue: the NEC Hall, PDP National Headquarters, Wadata Plaza, Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. Time 2 p.m. All members are enjoined to be in attendance. Signed, Senator Samuel Nnemeka Anyanwu, National Secretary, People's Democratic Party, PDP.
The Nigerian Institute.
Hello, everyone. Excellent morning to you. This is Kakaki Social. I am Onoshorena Obozegi, and it's super good to have you start your week with us on AIT. Now, Nigeria is strengthening its defense partnership with Turkey with plans to train 200 military personnel in the country. The initiative will see 200 officers and soldiers from the Nigerian Armed Forces undergo specialized training programs in Turkey as part of ongoing effort to enhance operational capacity and security effectiveness. This was disclosed by Nigeria's Minister of Defense, Christopher Musa, on the sidelines of the 5th Antalya Diplomacy Forum, ADF 2026, in Turkey on Saturday. Let's hear him.
Turkey has improved dramatically regards production of military hardware, and Nigeria is still developing, and we have agreed we're going to partner together so that we have co-production of some of the items. As we speak, because we have been fighting asymmetric warfare for almost 17 years now, Turkey has had experience over 40 years. And because of that, we work together closely. We have agreed to move into training, production, improving on our defense industry cooperation, and exchange of officers and soldiers in training. We have a special forces training. Now, Turkey has approved to give us 200 slots for special forces. So as we return, we are sending them to Turkey for training. We'll continue to do a lot. So many aspects in defense. We're going to continue to work together.
All right, let's see what you make of this news. Dude says, all them, we don't want help from United States of America because they fund terrorism in Nigeria are suddenly okay with Turkey, a Muslim country that supplied Boko Haram with weapons to assist Nigeria with training military officers, as they put it. Also from X is JC Okechi. He says, Gumi advises Tinubu to turn away from the U.S. and turn to Turkey and Iran for security cooperation. U.S. sends 200 troops to Nigeria. Tinubu visits Turkey and signs agreement. Suddenly, Turkey is for any limited how they should use it. We have to approach less stress and conditions of sales of arms. Must everything be USA for people who do not buy this idea with Turkey? Olobo says, same 200 that you would drop for Boko Haram to do shooting practice. Maybe it is even the so-called repentant Boko Haram guys they want to send on a vacation to Turkey. Who knows? He's lifting his hands there. And final thought to this one is coming from Emmanuel Obisession. He says, they will come back, get sent to fight the terrorists, catch them, and bring them in for appropriate punishment. Then the government will rehabilitate them and send them back to the community. How ironic. Thankfully, we had someone who supports this and sees the sense in that. Away from that, we have the Benue State Governor, Hyacinth Alia, that has appealed to the management of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, to organize a special receipt examination for 8 unified tertiary matriculation examination candidates who were recently kidnapped but have now regained freedom. He made the appeal while receiving 13 rescued victims at the old banquet hall government house in Makurdi. And we have to mention that the police and JAMB as well have said the kidnapped victims attributed to them as their candidate for the exams last Saturday and not their student. But let's go to Benue and listen to an account from one of the survivors and then the governor's appeal.
On our way to Tupo, we're coming there purposely to write JAMB because our center was posted there, Universal Cybernet. Ochidoma Road in Otukpo. So on our way to Otukpo, we were attacked in Taraku there by some armed robbers. So we were just taken to the forest there. And then on the first day, which was Wednesday on the 15th, we moved around the forest. And the second day, which was Thursday, on the evening we were fed with garri and sugar without water. Friday, they take us around one place looked like a stream, but water was dried up. So we were fed with mango. So we were tortured that our parents should bring a ransom, which was 10 million naira. But we put several complaints that our parents can't afford it, but we were beaten that such comments should not be made. So on Saturday, they promised us that if the money is not provided on that day, we are going to be killed. And the razors and the knives and cutlass were sharpened for us, and the bullet was also kept beneath us. Each of our parents promised us the amount is going to give. So on Saturday, we were kept in a strange place because every day we were migrating from here to there and we will spend the night there, which we cannot even recognize.
Very grateful to hear that the 7 kidnappers are already in the police custody. I also would like to call on JAM authorities to please look very deeply into the case of these 8 young students. I invite you to please have them scheduled to write this JAM of theirs. So send the dates, and we are willing in the state to take care of the rest of it.
All right, let's see what you make of this. John Udo says, no, they shouldn't be given admission, or they should be given admission without JAMB. How do you expect them to pass a rescheduled exam after all this trauma? Make una dey fear God small. And then we go to Facebook, AIT users there who were responding. Michael Okon says, with the level of insecurity in the country, JAMB is still posting candidates to different states far from their state of residence for exams. Please, UTME isn't NYSC. Allow these young lads to write their exams within their state of residence. And yes, another user too on AIT Online Facebook, Sule says, meanwhile, the JAMB registrar said they aren't JAMB candidates. I mean, this is a problem and a question to resolve right there. So then, who are they? If the students gave an account, I mean, that lady, the young girl, was given an account of how they left for Otukpo and how then it happened. As you heard part of it, it was really long, but I had to just reserve some part for time factor. Then, who are they? JAMB says, police also say that they are not candidate. All right. Away from that, there appears to be concerns about the recent directive by the National Broadcasting Commission warning broadcasters against airing personal opinions on radio and television, as the code says. The directive, which cites alleged breaches of the broadcasting code, has triggered reactions from rights groups, at least. The Socio-Economic Right and Accountability Project, that's SERAP, and Amnesty International have called on President Bola Tinubu to immediately intervene and withdraw what it describes as an unlawful attempt to restrict free expression in the media. They warned that the directive is already creating fear within newsrooms and among on-air personalities. The NBC had, in its April 17 notice, cautioned stations against what it terms as Class B breaches, including the expression of personal opinions on air and threatened sanctions for defaulters. But SERAP argues that journalism inherently involves analysis, interpretation, and critical engagement, insisting that restricting broadcasting from expressing views undermines the core functions of the media. Let's see what you make of this, because this has been in the news since the directive was put out again. Of course, it's in the code. Kingsley says, NBC just threatened broadcast stations for airing personal opinions and failing to maintain neutrality in a country where the government releases terrorists and jails activists where judges get mansions, where 3 years of budget were allegedly looted. They want the media neutral. Neutral because about what exactly? The silence is the point. Serap has 48 hours to get a response. Nigeria's free press should have or may have less. Another user too, Jacob says, a regulating body simply tells you to obey extant regulations and you want them to withdraw such notice. This is like asking the INEC to stop publishing elections guidelines. This is becoming abnormal for real. This is even more reasons for the NBC to begin to strictly enforce its code and regulations. Lest people like you destroys the country with fake news and misinformation. Alexander says, you all said Abacha was a dictator. I have been saying it to whoever wants to listen. This democracy and dictatorship, not just very thin line, separate them. And final thought is this user of Veggie who says, Serap is a toothless dog that can only bark but can't bite. An organization only known for giving threat and ultimatum, but at the end of the day, do nothing. That's according to that user right there. Let's see, they said 48 hours. Let's see what will happen in that 48 hours. And more rights groups are saying no to this directive. And away from that, we have former lawmaker Dino Melaye that has declared that he would defeat the president, Bola Tinubu, flat in an election. But he says the election has to be free and fair. Melaye made the statement on the Mic On podcast, expressing confidence in his political strength and nationwide appeal. He's insisting that Nigerians are seeking alternative leadership.
See, we'll do 1 million times better than Tinubu. There can never be a worse president than Tinubu. They can never be.
So Dino would defeat Bola Tinubu?
Me?
Dino Melaye?
Let's go. Let's go on a free and fair election.
You are
today.
Senator
Bola
Dino
Tinubu
Melaye
is the most unpopular politician in Nigeria.
So you can beat President Tinubu at the election?
Anopa. Anobole.
What is that?
I will beat him flat.
In Kogi?
He will not even stand up.
In Kogi or in FCT?
In the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
You are that popular?
Dino will always produce that sound bite, whatever that means. This user in reaction, Nigerian Youth for Education, says, Dino Melaye said it with full confidence, but in Nigerian politics, the gap between what is said in April and what happens on election day is wider than the Niger Delta. Another thought also is still saying that even in freest and fairest election, as bad as Tinubu may seem, Dino will not get fifth in a contest of 6 contenders. Why now? Some more thought. Adamawa Lasbon says, coming from someone that could not even vote for himself. In the last election, you remember, if you missed it, that Dino says that he could not even vote because he was not, he gave some reasons I don't remember right now. Okay says, Dino suppose they perform for comedy shows. And also, Akinde says, I listened to the interview. Dino re-echoed what Buba Galadima said, that the dead in a coffin can defeat Tinubu come 2027. Dino, in reference to the very poor performance and colossal failure of Tinubu, has the right to conclude so. And he says, I so support. All right, let's go back to 2023. Because very soon, election results, you remember that he was a governorship candidate last election year in his beloved state, Kogi. And netizens brought back this election result. Now Ododo is reeling because he won 446,000 plus votes. And then the second, Ajaka, 259,000 plus. But Dino scored less than 50,000. And they are now asking, if you could not do this in your dear state, how come then in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Gabadaya? But then anybody can say anything, and we can also work towards the things that we say. Yeah. Away from that, We have some Nigerians in the United Kingdom that have taken their protest to the UK Parliament, demanding the removal of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Joash Amupitan. The protesters called for credible and transparent electoral processes ahead of the 2027 general elections, accusing the electoral body's leadership of alleged bias and partisanship. They are of the opinion that a credible election is impossible with Amupitan. We're back home in Nigeria. Prominent voices, including Patu Tomi and Femi Falana, want a change of leadership and INEC over similar allegations of partisanship. We'll go to the UK and see what it was like while that protest lasted.
We don't want Lagos kind of democracy. No. We don't want any of those. No. We want an election. We want a democracy. We want a country where the opposition has the free will. Breathe. Let Nigeria breathe. Amupitan must go. Amupitan must go. Amupitan must go. Amu must go. Yes.
Well, right there, it says it's Amu must go. And this user, Hanok Greet, says tomorrow they will collect 1K euro to they will share 1K euro to 100 persons to come out and counter this protest. It's that simple. So more thought, man like me says, when Sheyi or any politician shares 500 euro again, or pounds again, most of you will quickly go back to your shell. This is eye service, stomach infrastructure. You protest loud today, collect crumbs tomorrow, and forget everything. Real change will never come from people whose anger disappears once small money enters their pocket. Another reaction, this user says, so what will the UK Parliament do? They will write a letter to INEC directing the removal of the INEC chairman. How daft can some people be? And so more thought too. Boban says, my only issue with this is us assuming changing INEC chairman changes anything. Shouldn't the agitation be about taking away the powers of the presidency to appoint umpires in the competition they serve as partakers themselves? Makes me question if we understand the enemy at all. So that's coming from that user right there, and the conversation that has lasted for a very long time. You cannot say you are the judge when I am, someone in the court as well that you need to attend to. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. Finally today, an area court in Ilorin, Kwara State, has dissolved a marriage over the husband's inability to provide for his family. The marriage between Bashirat Mohammed and Toyin Ajibola was brought to an end after the wife told the court that she could no longer cope with the persistent hardship and lack of financial support. The woman said that she tried and she got tired of the union and needed peace of mind, citing extreme poverty as a reason for seeking divorce. Her husband, Toyin Ajibola, admitted that he was financially incapacitated and unable to meet the demands and needs of his family, though he pleaded for the marriage to be sustained. Presiding over the matter, presiding Judge Ahmed June Mobi, however, ruled in favor of the woman, stating that she could be completed, that she should not be compelled to remain in the marriage. And then the court granted custody of the couple's 3 children to the mother, while directing the father to continue to cater for their welfare to the best of his ability. And also, the court ordered the observance of the mandatory Ida period before the woman can remarry someone else. Just to say, you can't just leave for someone else. Ikem Jewel says, this is why no woman should be idle, even when you are a stay-at-home mom. Find a convenient hustle so that if financial shege slaps your husband, you can be his helpmeet. Chai, it shall not be well with poverty. Amen. I follow you, Joy. Say amen. Michael says, that's why I hate the advice that say, marry with the little you have, that marriage and children bring blessing. As a man, if you're not capable financially, leave marriage. So more thought to this one. Theozia says, I don't blame her for that. Poverty always takes away peace of mind, and no woman should be subjected to suffer with any man. Last thought, two in one now. David says, a rich man will fall in love with a poor woman, but a poor woman can never fall in love with a poor man. And Theosus is then responding, says, right from time, God made it mandatory for a man to be the provider, not the woman. All right. Those are your reactions to most of the stories trending this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of Kakaki Social this morning. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Rena Obio, and we are AIT_online. Be good and stay with us. The program has not ended.
My baba, they always say, for market, every day gets your own wahala. Sometimes people go on scam you. But Baba say, no be by gra. You must cool down, dey sharp. Because with OPay payment, your money go enter sharp, no story. But inside market, anything fit happen. One day, we no see phone again. My baba remember OPay USSD lock, dial *955*131#. Baba press am, lock account. From market woman to driver, from small boy to big man. Now OPay, they protect people like us. My baba fit sell, press phone, collect POS, and still they teach me price. And when they don't tire am, go just tap OPay night guard. We no fear for this our hustle life. Now OPay be the people payment shield.
Cube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
In the hallowed chambers where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program inside the parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The burden of proving that the elections have been conducted peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the president.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The questions are tough. The exchanges are intense.
Mr. President, you can have your way, but I will have my say. You can use the gavel, and I will use my voice.
And those who want the proviso are 55 in number. And so the proviso says.
But who truly stands for the people? Who is driving the change that defines our tomorrow?
Let us tell ourselves the truth. Why are we here talking about LGBT, GTBT, whatever?
Get the answers on Where Nigeria Decides on Inside the Parliament on AIT every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m.
Gender Agenda is where policy meets people. It's a bold policy literacy platform bridging the gap between decision makers and women across every sector. From parliament to politics, from leadership to governance, from peace to economy, development, human rights. From Nigeria to the rest of Africa, Gender Agenda amplifies voices too often excluded, ensuring every voice counts. Through compelling storytelling, social impact dialogue, thought-provoking documentaries, town halls that lean on data and research, we raise the bar. Gender Agenda, every Friday, 4:30 p.m. live.
Well, thank you for staying with us, and definitely that was quite a hatful on Kakaki Socials this morning, from people who can defeat the president and, of course, to conversations on the matters arising. Well, just to tell you that we've been talking about Nasarawa state politics and, of course, the choice of a consensus candidate or the brother's keeper, you know, as Sierra said here earlier on in the show. But just to let you know that we have a third guest joining us, Innocent Lagi, former Attorney General, Nasarawa State, and former member, Nasarawa State House of Assembly. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you on the show. All right. Now, Al-Hassan, maybe I'll come back to you because you were expressing a certain frame of thought before we went on that Kakaki social break. And, you know, we were talking to you about, you know, the frame or the semantics of brother's keeper versus consensus candidates versus zoning. And, you know, Yari says all of them are the same thing, and perhaps maybe the word doesn't differ when it comes to the expression.
You see, anything semantic and consensus and anything he's trying to say zoning is not there. I will maintain that if it is zoning, then a lot of factors has to be considered, and there has been nowhere there is any arrangement of zoning in Nasarawa State. And let me tell you, brother's keeper that Al-Makura did was not imposition. He didn't impose. He didn't force. He allowed the process to be free and fair. And now, what they did right away, to take someone who they said is preferred candidate and call him consensus candidate, is a total destruction to the party guidelines or the INEC guidelines. It is not consensus. And for them now, I want to remind them, probably they are trying to blackmail the Mr. President. Because Mr. President actually said the Electoral Act should be respected. So when did they have this arrangement? And before I get to forget, I want to go back and remind him, when and at what sitting, let him mention, he's an MNI. I believe anybody that went to NIBS should have been able to have a lot of banks and data. When did they sit? Where did they sit to agree that, okay, Wadada is the consensus candidate? He said, probably Al-Makura was consulted. At what point? At where? At where? You see, let's be very, very frank and stand that prosperity is going to judge us on this process of democracy. It's not just about sitting down to frame what is suiting you. He is a student of Al-Makura. He himself that is talking there. He has been made to so many places, and he has seen that. Or maybe because now there might be an arrangement. Probably they are putting an arrangement that he might be the National Deputy Secretary maybe next time. That is why. There is no way they are going to jeopardize this process in Nasarawa State. Everybody's eyes is open. We are not arguing the fact that the governor has a choice of putting anybody he wants to put forward. But he should bring the person forward to the people. Let the people decide. This is our call. This is our statement. This is our position. Recently, remember, the governor himself said he must not force anybody to stand. Now, we're talking about Nasarawa South, Nasarawa West, Nasarawa North. Please, I want us to be fair. If it is talking about zoning or even political arrangement, that there should be fair, there should be equity. When they were giving ministers, how many ministers have been coming to Nasarawa North? How many ministers come to Nasarawa South? When they were giving other political appointments, what is that?
All right, we'll come back to Al-Hassan in a bit, but let's bring in Innocent here into this matter, perhaps before I come back to Yaris, because I know that you're brewing to give a comeback to that. But a statement released by the Nasarawa state government on Sunday says Governor Sule acted within established political norms. You perhaps know better when it comes to Nasarawa state politics, the workings and the methodology of political party, perhaps intrigues. When they speak about political norms within politics, especially looking at, APC as it speaks, with the interest of those who want to run versus those who have been chosen by the governor, what do you think political norms refers to within this conversation?
APC's governance in Nasarawa State had just been in the past 16 years or thereabout. Now, Al-Makura had 8 years. I do not understand the norm before he came into power. The current governor, A.A. Sule, is just completing his own 8 years. In fact, that will be the first time that the APC was elected basically we have a change from one APC to another APC government. So I do not understand, I mean, if we talk about norms, we're looking at a social arrangement, not an entirely legal arrangement. Now, if there is a social arrangement, it will then be amongst who? You know, if Nasarawa is quite a diverse state, even politically. In the last elections, even the preferred aspirant of the governor, if there was any norm, disagreed with the process, the APC process, and moved to the SDP and won an election under the APC. Now, is there an established norm? I don't think we do in Nasarawa State. But people keep talking about zoning. Was it agreed from the beginning? No. I mean, I have been a young activist way back from the university for the agitation of the creation of Nasarawa State, and we knew the process. I won elections under the Labour Party of first to win in the country. In a state like Nasarawa State, I rose to become an attorney general, and then whether there was an arrangement when the state was created, no. Abdullahi Adamu became the first governor. It was a competitive election. He contested with the former Akwaidoma contested with...
So it wasn't based on north, south, or west?
No, not at all. We have never had that. Okay. So it started, all the arrangements started because the first governor was from the west. Then when he was living, in fact, he left as a PDP governor, and then eventually nominated an APC rival of his when he moved to a PDP, and Akwaidoma became governor. Akwaidoma had one term. There was a revolt that involved everybody, and Al-Makura, the records will show, was the first and only CPC governor in 2011. I was just leaving the House of Assembly when that happened. Now, because Al-Makura had 2 terms and Akwaidoma had 1 term, the Southern Zone had produced a governor for 12 years. And I will say this with all sense of responsibility. My older brother was there too. The equity that was needed in Nasarawa State was that at least all the zones should have a bite at the gubernatorial seat.
So there was silent zoning arrangement.
No.
Perhaps a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah, I don't think it was agreed by anybody, because in all the primary elections and all the political parties, no particular political party had zoned it. So let's start from political party format. For example, the Senator Wadada contested with A.A. Sule and came second at those primaries. Now, it is going to be hypocritical to assume that the APC had zoned the governorship to our zone because it allowed everybody participated. Now, will that be a mutual agreement or mutual arrangement? No, because everybody was allowed to run, even when A.A. Sule ran, Wadada ran with him. But let's look at the wider issues of equity in Nasarawa State. The Western Zone has 5 local governments. The Southern Zone has 5 local governments. The Northern Senatorial District has only 3 local governments. So if we're looking at equity, affirmative action, if we say the only other not equally competitive senatorial district will be Nasarawa North. So if you're doing equity, you can only be doing it to Nasarawa North and not, I mean, when you have 5 over 5 fighting, there's just no cause for equity because there is equality already. So when we have the situation where Al-Makura chose a preferred candidate for Nasarawa North, that was completely understandable. And I'll give you some history behind it. Al-Makura probably wouldn't have been governor if not for the support he got from late Solomon Ewuga. Because it was a pretty tricky electoral period, and he had to build certain alliances that guaranteed he could succeed. One of his biggest benefactor was Solomon Ewuga, who was from the Northern Senatorial District. If that was a payback, that can be understandable, because without Solomon Ewuga, Al-Makura wouldn't probably become governor at the time he became governor. Now, was there any arrangement by the indigenous of Nasarawa State as to how to rotate the governorship? No. Was there a requirement that all parts, senatorial districts, should have the opportunity to present a governor, I think yes. Till tomorrow, I will tell you yes. That once you have a disadvantaged part of you, the equity of the situation will always be to do an affirmative action to give that person an opportunity where they can't compete because of numbers. So the Nasarawa North had 3 local governments, Nasarawa South has 5, Nasarawa West has 5. Between the two of them, between Nasarawa West and Nasarawa South, there's no equity. You won't be helping any of them. They have equal strength. But between the two of them and Nasarawa North, there can always be a seeming equity if you do a affirmative action. But even during the 2019 election, even within the APC, that didn't happen. A.A. Sule ran, was supported for the reasons I put forward by Al-Mukura, and the present person endorsed by the governor also ran and came second. So will that situation be interpreted as some arrangement even within the APC? I don't think so.
So do you now think that the governor, perhaps, according to some, has done absolutely nothing wrong by choosing his candidate, preferred candidate, ahead of the 20?
No, I mean, it's a democracy. In fact, that's why we have secret ballots. So your wife, your sons, your daughters, your father does not know where you... But to support a candidate of choice, it's guaranteed under the Constitution. He has not done anything wrong. But you see, the problem will arise, and even from the APC perspective, where you have a leader, a pronounced leader or a constitutional leader of a political party in a state taking sides between contesting parties, there's already bias. So there is a conflict of interest in respect of the neutrality that is expected from leadership. So once a governor crosses that threshold and picks a side, he no longer can sit as a leader and as a neutral leader to determine the fate of his compatriots. So the issues we have now is where does the chairman of the party in the state stand? Before now, allegations were that he was supporting one candidate against, one aspirant against the others. It is clear now the governor, as the leader of the party in the state, has also shown interest in a particular aspirant against the other aspirants. Now, the point is, what role will they play in the eventual selection process or who comes forward? Because even the Constitution guarantees and insists that political parties' internal mechanism must also be democratic. So if that is the law, the APC in Nasarawa State is expected to act democratically. If it doesn't, it will be in the breach of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. And where a party clearly takes sides, the issue of neutrality, unbiasedness is no longer there. So the question is, what roles will they play going forward? They cannot, for example, appoint a nominee. The Electoral Act that has been amended is very clear. Consensus means that each and every one of the contestants must agree. But we are trying to jump the gun a lot at the moment. APC has not even started the process of its primaries. So you can't not...
So you say it's premature?
Lot premature. And I think people are looking at it from an entirely very uninformed point of view. And I'm sorry to say this. There are no contestants for the office of the governor in Nasarawa State yet. Nobody has picked the APC form. The process has not started. You do not know who is an aspirant, because the definition of an aspirant is that you express your interest. No, aspiration first. You express your interest by an expression of interest form. You pick a nomination form. You then are nominated by members of the party, and you are screened. Once you pass that threshold, then you become an aspirant for the primaries of the APC. You are then qualified. Only then will you then be qualified as an aspirant who could concede to one of the processes. So if you do not cross that threshold, you can't be engaged in any consensus because you are not within the primary process. So everything that is going on now is completely unconstitutional for the APC, completely unofficial, and does not have any effect, absolutely.
Yaris?
Yeah, I think it's good that the former Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice has given us the history of what is happening, what happened in Nasarawa State, and he was part of it. And
I wasn't in the CPC.
the people of Nasarawa State are already aware of this development. There's nothing new about it. And that is why we are saying that since Engineer Abdullahi Esule has done what his previous leaders had done, there's nothing wrong in what he has done. 2, if in the build-up towards the 2027 elections, the party decides to discuss and to consult among its members, the aspirants, in order to reduce the tension, to reduce the timing that most of the members of the aspirants will be spending and the resources, and discuss to come together and say, well, this is what I think we should do. Let us pick a candidate. Remember that this thing has been done just within the Western Zone.
Isn't that choice already made for them already with the governor putting forward his preferred candidate?
I told you he had asked them to go and discuss among themselves and come up with one person.
But how many of them? Sorry, let me, so that we get the... let's get the factual situation. Let's get
from the Western Zone. Now, remember that this discussion is from the Western Zone.
Okay, that's clear now.
Yes, from the Western Zone. Okay. It doesn't stop anybody from any other zone from contesting at the primary elections. It doesn't. It doesn't stop anybody from contesting.
Does it?
So,
okay.
So if in 2019, distinguished Senator Wadada contested with Esule, it means that in 2026 or 2027, which we're still going to do our primaries, it doesn't stop anybody from contesting with one another. Even though from the Western Zone, we have tried, the party has tried to streamline the number of people that should go into the primaries. But it doesn't stop any other person from any other zone from contesting. I think it should be made clear in that respect. 2, it is important for us to know that for us to always come to the public and say that there is no zoning in Nasarawa State and that nobody should, hold on to it as an arrangement that has been going in Nasarawa State. I think it makes me feel that we are not being sincere to ourselves.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, because from 1999, like I said before, 1999, Abdullahi Adamu came up. He has given the history.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm addressing.
He has given that, so I don't need to repeat it. So if His Excellency Senator, distinguished Senator Almakura came up with Esule, I think during the Almakura unveiled Engineer Esule 4 months to the primary elections. Engineer Esule is unveiling his preferred candidate or preferred aspirant 1 month. So what makes it premature? What makes it unconstitutional? I don't see anything there. So I think we should not be just discussing these issues just because we want to discuss for the sake of discussion. Look, Nasarawa State is our state, and we should be working towards maintaining law and order. Each time you drive from here into the town, you have traffic. You have red light showing you. If everybody goes into the junction, a road at the same time, there will be chaos. All that the party is saying, let us discuss among ourselves and see how we can make things better for ourselves, for the unity of the party, for the strength of the party, for the growth of the party, and success of the party in the 2027 elections. Other parties are coming up. Of course, we cannot sit down and allow our house to disintegrate, to be in disorder. That's what we're trying to arrange things in our house so that we can go into the 2000 election as one party.
I listened to Al Hassan, and he sort of said perhaps we need to give him pictorial evidence of the stakeholders consultation that was done with Al Makura, because he doesn't seem to think that ever has happened. Is there any truth in this, that perhaps stakeholders, the old guards, were not consulted before the governor went to the presidential villa, presented Senator Aliyu to him, and made him the consensus candidate?
Engineer Abla Esule and distinguished Senator Omar Tonko Al Makura are two inseparable people. So for me to sit down here and begin to give you dates and times that they used to go and meet and discuss, I think it will be porous of me.
I mean,
I cannot say so.
You presented that fact.
Yeah, I said so that.
All they are asking for is evidence. But sorry, and I just hate to interject. Al Makura came to complete a second term of a southern governorship because he removed Akwe from Doma, all from the southern senatorial district. If we are talking about zoning, and zoning on the basis of equality of terms, which will be 8 years for each governorship. What happened when Al Makura took another term and made the southern zone take a 12-year term? Now, if you have that conversation going, it then means there is a tradition on the ground, and there are lots of opposing political parties contesting this election from Nasarawa North. It also can then justify that there is a tradition that Nasarawa North can present another candidate to do the term Al Makura did that made the southern zone had 12 years. Now, look, let's be honest. A.A. Sule and the chairman of the APC are not the party in the state. And there is no consensus, even by law. Factually, there is no consensus. Legally, there is no consensus because, as I said earlier, you can't take an aspirant that you are supporting and present him. It's really not nice to present him as a consensus candidate for the APC of the
He's
state.
also mentioned, I do not know, I mean, Al Hassan, are you there, if you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see, actually, I want my brother, the MNI there, to understand. I think he is trying to look at it as if we are fighting the party internally. No, we are correcting the party abnormalities. The leadership, just like Barrister, my brother there also have mentioned, that the party leadership have taken position and have taken side, making any other brother in the party feeling insecure. He is a father. If that is how they treat their children in the house, then it means something is wrong within the family cycle too. Everybody must be given opportunity. When he is talking about PDP and Abdullahi Adamu and Aliyu Akwe, I want to remind them that at that time that Aliyu Akwe was about to come, late Senator Okudo Okpede contested keenly with him. And then all that it happens, and when it comes to Al Makura time to bring A.A. Sule, Wadada contested keenly. It has been mentioned. His deputy governor contested keenly with him. Commissioners contested keenly in the process. Nobody was victimized. But at this present government, everybody showing interest, even if you are supporting everybody, is either they dismiss you from work or you are victimized from this. And he is an experienced person in party leadership, if that is the case. So what we are saying, except if there is a... Otherwise, we should be able not to do that thing we have done, and now we're talking about we have to come back home and harmonize. And coming back home, all this time people have been showing their grievances about the process. We are not denying the fact that Governor Abdullahi Sule does not have the right to point at someone he wants to succeed in. But we said it should be done formally, sequentially. And he is saying Al Makura has come up publicly on the press day before yesterday to say he was not consulted. So who is he waiting for? And so that's why I'm asking him to tell us when he has been consulted. Meetings are different from consultations of sitting down to understand the metrics and the indices of these challenges and why you are doing this. What we are saying, no zoning, if we will insist to say there is zoning, factors will come in, like the barrister is trying to say. Areas that are dominated by Christians will say, okay, when it is time, it's supposed to be just a Christian in that area. Zoning has series of intrigues in it. Equity, fairness, and principle of humanity demands that people should be allowed to do democracy freely. We're talking about competency now in Nasarawa State. Nasarawa State has been old. It has been there for us. And we're saying we need someone that understands the magnitude of character differences and other issues that is affecting us to handle Nasarawa State, not by choice. Let me remind you again, there, when the chairman was supporting was Wadada. Wadada, who is there in SDP, who left APC to SDP because he failed primary elections, went to win. And then the party chairman supported that to become senator. I don't even know now whether Wadada has withdrawn his membership of SDP in the National Assembly, because the position he's holding right away is also the position of the minority, the opposition. We have not seen where the Senate President have announced that Wadada has decamped from SDP to APC. If they have done that, we need the evidence.
All right.
Let me hold your thought on that because of candidate. Have we done the consensus process?
Yes, Al Hassan, I hear you. So for want of time, I would want to come back to the studio for us to have some sort of summary around this conversation, because it's almost at the top of the hour. Now, I hear and I sense there's a lot of geopolitical dichotomy in the Nasarawa state politics. It's very obvious. But, I mean, he's talked about intimidation, expulsion, you know, sack, you know, for those who have opposing views. I come back to you, Innocent. In the guise of what has been discussed, we listened to Senator Tanko Amakura say, and he warned, that if this is not resolved, it may create, you know, some level of chaos within the party in Nasarawa State's APC. Do you see that happening? Do you see this snowballing into a full-scale crisis? People have said, oh, we're on the outlook for APC to implode. We're looking for the first example. Is Nasarawa State on that radar right now?
I think we're the greatest example of what can go wrong in the APC. Fortunately or unfortunately, I had joined the party. And I'll give you clear examples. We can choose to ignore them. I was around, my brother said so, in 2011 when Al-Makura became governor. Exactly playing the same script. Now, when a chairman of the party in the state, for example, will come out and say, discordant voice within the party, people are acting like opposition to the party and they're not welcome, they have already been cast out of the party. Now, the issue we have in the APC in Nasarawa State is the arrogance of success. Now, that was the same arrogance that pushed the same people out of the PDP, pushed the PDP to opposition, and they are now playing the same script. Now, there's just no way, and I'll say this in conclusion, there is no way anybody or any political party in Nasarawa State can win an elections without an elite consensus. There is nobody popular enough to win an election on his own terms without an elite consensus. Now, once you have Al-Makura not within that consensus, you have Kana SAN not within that consensus, you are hearing Al-Hassan not within that consensus, and those are very few voices that have the courage to come out and say what they said. I can guarantee you the APC will already have lost the elections in Nasarawa State. All
right, I think that is a great place. Maybe just just one word, Yaris, just before we end, because we're told to.
Yeah, no, well, that is his own view. APC is on the verge of winning elections in 2027 in Nasarawa State. And by the grace of God, we're going to put all these things that are happening, we'll put them together. These are political developments in the state. We've seen it before, and it will continue happen, and we'll bring, by the grace of God, we'll get to the point where the Honorable Commissioner and all those he has mentioned will come back to the same table and pursue the success of APC in Nasarawa State.
And I agree with the consensus.
Right. I mean, we have the history.
No, I just have to take that away, because you said in conclusion, and Al Hassan, sorry, I think I lost you there, but thank you so much. I think going from what Yari says, he says is a work in progress. Politics is about dimensions, and at the end of the day, every party comes to the same table for the same objective, and that is the success of the APC in Nasarawa State. I must thank you, gentlemen, Innocent Lagi, former Attorney General of Nasarawa State and former member of the Nasarawa State House of Assembly, who who's joined us later on in the show to bring some perspective inside, riled up a little, consciousness. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me
on the show. And of course, we had Al Hassan Doma, Director of Operations and Command, Mohammed Abubakar Adamu, 2027 campaign team. Thank you for joining us and wading in your thoughts as much as you did. And Yarus Dagusa, Secretary, All Progressive Congress, Nasarawa State, who says there's no hope, lost, and there's no cause for alarm. Everything is still as it is, and it's all politics. Well, thank you guys for joining us this morning. And I'm sure talking politics is a way we get the cue to say have a lovely day. And I am yours truly, Adora Sydney Jack. See you again tomorrow. Goodbye.